TV, radio, and the print media. She covered the news with an outside the Beltway perspective. Her experience as an investigative journalist ranges from national security issues like Gitmo's to meet Sheikh Mohammed 9/11 trial, immigrant as a TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network, and the website is thekbreport.com. Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good, pretty good. Some reason, it's like within the last hour, all of a sudden I got so congested. I don't know, not that much traffic in the studio. So anyway,
maybe it's Nancy Pelosi.
And it hits you just about the time you're going to do some newscast. You know what I mean?
Well, I was just going to say, were you watching Nancy Pelosi give her speech as Speaker of the House? Maybe that's the root of what your issue is right now.
No, I didn't get to see that because I was busy doing other things. But, that was a pretty close vote, actually, against her and the Republicans.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's going to be a very antagonistic 2 years to come.
I got to tell you, not looking forward to it. It's going to be just unbelievable, all the things they're doing. And yesterday I was reading off all these different, what is it called? I guess groups that the Democrats already have lined up, and not all of them are George Soros funded, but one of the really biggies they have, Kimberly, is the FOIA, and they're going to go after the president so many things. I guess they're learning from Judicial Watch, who's pretty good at going after Freedom of Information Act.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, when we saw the Republicans kind of use this similar tactic against Obama when they didn't want Obamacare, they didn't want, the Green Initiative and climate change bills and the accords with other countries and things like that. The Republicans actually, because they were the minority, they took to the legal courts, and it's something they've actually learned from the Democrats, because the Democrats have always turned to the courts rather than legislate. So unfortunately for the Republicans, now it's going to come back to haunt them a bit, because now you're going to see organizations that support the Democrats that are going to move to push so we can have some Benghazi-like hearings, some Fast and Furious-like hearings and things like that really, in the end, just won't amount to anything. There'll be a report that comes out, but all they're trying to do is, sway the opinion of anyone who's going to be voting in the 2020 election. So I think it's going to be a tough row for the president. He's got, I still don't know how he gets up every day and does it, but he does. What he needs to do and focus on the business, he's got it. So it's just going to be rough for anybody watching TV news.
I bet there's a lot of people out there, Kimberly, that think, boy, no alcohol, no drugs. How in the world does he do it? They're really just wondering, because there's a lot of people who do it. Party goers, and I guess he's I don't know, workaholic. That's for sure.
He is, and there are a few people that are like that in this world. He happens to be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, once again, I'm on your Facebook page, but I'm not seeing you there. Are you having any problems?
No, actually, I'm looking at. I've got a whole bunch of people following me right now. Hi, guys.
Isn't that amazing how it always happens to me? And I but it's nothing new. Here it is, the new year, and things would be better. But, they are better because you're still here. So
well, there you go. Log off and log back on, maybe.
I'll tell you something. You are getting a lot of response from this recent posting. It's time, Mr. President. We're going to get into that right after we come back from the break, because I don't want to, spend 10 seconds on it and then have to go.
Yeah.
I will tell you another thing. If we have time, I got to bring up Crazy Cortez and her Green New Deal. If you read it, what she says, I mean, it sounds like Adolf Hitler giving a speech. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to be right back. Kimberly Dvorak, all right? And it is the KDReport.com and streaming live at Facebook. We'll be right back. CRN Wilder here with my guest Kimberly Dvorak and discussing her latest. It's time, Mr. President. And you just say he has accomplished incredible things within, in this 2-year period. And you think about all the people that are against him. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
They've got the syndrome, don't they? They can't get it out of their head.
Yeah, I think the first paragraph, I really, it's just like the longest sentence I've ever written because there were so many people that are against the president.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say the economy's booming, new trade deals, Europe, China, record unemployment, nearly $1 trillion in cash that have been repatriated to the United States. It just goes on and on and on.
It does. It does. And, I think what's kind of important, and I think at the new year, kind of started out with an op-ed. I traditionally write investigative pieces, but, I kind of felt this is going to be a new year for the president in which he's going to have to battle for absolutely everything he has. And I wanted to let, my readers and followers know that, there are some simple things that he can do and that they can do to support the president. And so I took the time to write the op-ed. Again, this particular piece is hard. I use facts in it, but it's opinion. And I believe that if he follows this, that he will have a successful presidency and be reelected in 2020.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Leslie, you should read the entire piece here because it's very, very good on Kimberly Dvorak's part. And when all these rallies he does, I think he's going to miss them if he doesn't have to get out and campaign more frequently. But that's almost like you don't need drugs when you have that many people showing up. And Bill and Hillary trying to do a book tour or something, or a apology tour. I don't know what the heck it was. And they start their tickets out at $200 and it gets down to $10 or $15.
Yeah.
It's something like fuel for President Trump. Those rallies.
Well, what I'll say is about the President Trump is he's extremely popular with his base. And what made him popular, in flyover country, and that was he was going to look after the country. And he used words like you, the forgotten man or woman. He didn't use the word me, mine, I. So on all of these issues, for the most part, the president is enjoying pretty good daily, he's wiped out every single day on every single news network. And it's also been a little discouraging to see Fox News jump on board on some of this stuff as well. That's kind of, for me, when you look at that and, they're quoting, his lowest poll numbers to date are right now. And they're quoting a CNN poll. I just, when you look at the partisanship between it, you thought that Fox would kind of really stay down the middle, but it just seems like they're just jumping on the piling on of all of this, let's get Trump, talk. Meanwhile, while everybody's talking about that, there's not one job being created. There's no debt being paid down. We have men and women overseas. These are issues that the American people actually care about. We have an invasion at our southern border. And for Nancy Pelosi and her friends this morning to come out and say that was, they literally said this was fake news. That the Trump administration was reporting fake information, yet on the TV screen, we see that there, are people climbing over the walls in San Diego and it's overwhelming Border Patrol. So that's just something that, is really, it's tough to see when the from the establishment. Now with his base, he enjoys very high marks and he's accomplished a lot.
Yeah, and in the latest attack, I guess it was last weekend down there in your area in San Diego.
Yeah.
I read a report from AP, and it was about about Associated Press, and it was they said, here once again they're putting the little kids up and throwing rocks at the, Border Patrolmen. And the Associated Press never once showed, the rock throwing, or any of the negative stuff,
Because
so
it doesn't fit.
It's not a matter of fake news. It's like not reporting the news on their end. And you're cutting out quite a bit there, so I have
sorry.
to apologize. I don't hear every single thing you're saying.
Yeah, no, but I'd like to make a comment. I mean, what you see at the border right now with people and children, you're right, throwing rocks and all of that, that's actually happening. That doesn't fit in with the narrative that the left wants right now. But I think what got me so riled up this weekend was when we had an illegal alien who shot and murdered a police who took extra English classes because he wanted to make sure that when he called in on his radio that everybody could understand what he was saying and there would be no mix-ups or no incidents because they didn't understand what he said. The mainstream media, and I went and looked at all the different channels and read the reports, not one of them said that this guy was illegally in the country A. And then a few days later, he was being harbored by 8 illegal aliens in a house. And nobody is crying out there saying, oh my gosh, look at this. The AP did not mention that. Man finally captured after killing police officer. So they don't want anybody to know this is happening. And that's why I think it's going to be more and more important for people to tune into, to cable radio shows like this one and to, watch, seek out as much news as you can from independent sources, because you're not going to get the real story. And to me, if Americans were seeing that every single day, illegal aliens, 8 harbored an illegal alien that murdered a police officer, if they saw that over and over and over, they would probably have a different tune than, going out there and saying, yeah, well, it's just, that doesn't happen. There's like 3 people that I think could be further from the truth. And I think that, a lot of this and all, I obviously I come from a completely different stance on this, but what I will say is that the media is letting the American people down by not getting the real story. And one day there's going to come when we really need true reporting and people who are prepared to report the facts, because it's going to save our country from some great disaster that we don't know yet. The United States media will have been so disproven and proved to be fake news that when they need to cover a story that nobody is going to believe them, they have a 13% approval rating. That is atrocious. That means nobody trusts you. And to me as a journalist, I mean, it's very concerning, because when you look at things like this, it's just, it's mind-boggling, to see that this is where they're going.
The sheriff up there in Stanislaus County was really, really upset, and he brought out the fact, that it's that stupid California SB 54 law. My hands were tied. I couldn't report to ICE that we were getting ready to let the guy loose. And nobody talks about it. Not the mainstream media. They're not going to talk about SB 54 sanctuary cities. And on earlier, I was noticing especially a lot of comments about the shooting. And they said, isn't it amazing how the left doesn't say, where did you get the gun? Where did you get the gun? Where did that gun come from? How did he get a gun? All of a sudden, that's not a big deal, But it's their priority, and how they have the false reporting of the child that died on the border, in custody. And that was because the father said, no more treatment, no more treatment. But, you get a little kid killed by a drunk driver, illegal alien, no big deal. Chicago, for example.
Nothing
all the
there.
Children that die in Chicago, they're going to get the headlines like an illegal alien gets.
No, and to watch, I think MSNBC is like the biggest offender when it comes to this particular topic. But I mean, they're out there literally blaming President Trump that these 2 children have passed away. Well, unless President Trump was down in Honduras and put a gun to the parent's head and said, look, we're marching up through the border and there's not going to be a lot of water somewhere along the way. So, you just got to suck it up and get going, and we're going to hop the fence and we're going to get into the promised land. This is negligence on the. It was learned later that the one child hadn't had water for like 7 or 8 days. How can that be the United States government's fault? I just don't understand. If you want to come to this country, and they said, oh, like 800 people died in the deserts coming into this country. You know what? If you don't want to get attacked by a shark, don't swim in the ocean. If you don't want to die crossing a border, then try the front door like the rest of the people who come to this country legally, lawfully, and orderly.
And they don't want to hear 1 million plus. It is more people admitted into this country than all the other countries combined, what they're doing. And, you know, and like the water thing, right? It's, you know, you can feel for them, but, you know, they built the fence, all right, down in the San Diego area. So they had to turn, and then they had to start crossing the desert. So that's our fault, right? If you had the wall all the way, they wouldn't be making those turns.
Yeah.
But I think it was somebody said the food stamps that just the illegal aliens get would pay for the wall automatically.
Yeah.
Automatically. But all they want to harp about is you pay for the. We don't want to talk about that other thing. He said Mexico's going to pay for the wall. But what about this and that? And, no, he said Mexico's going to pay. You know, it's one track mind.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think they resort to those kind of tactics because they can't really fight the facts here. I mean, because the facts are the facts. We're looking at our southern border, and if you look, where most of the migrants now are coming, they're coming up to Tijuana because they know California is a sanctuary state. So they get here and they feel they've got the golden ticket. They're not going to be deported. They'll go through a process. The court date will come and go. They won't show up. They'll be part of the community. They'll have some more kids. Now they'll have anchor babies. This is the process. Why do you think they're coming here and they're not going to Arizona? Because Arizona doesn't offer these same privileges that the state of California does. And, you know, just in an instant, I had to, you know, when you go to the DMV and you're dealing with the DMV, I had to go renew my driver's license this trip. And you know, I'm sitting in, I felt like A, I was in a foreign country. And B, I mean, the lines are so incredibly long because we're giving out driver's licenses to people who aren't in this country legally. So these people who actually pay taxes. And I just think, you know, it's the American people will see it at some point, but it's going to have to take, I think, you know, a new TV network, somebody that's going to come up and be able to put the facts out there and show the pictures of what's really going on at the border. Talk about, I mean, we're worried about ISIS beheading people over in the Middle East. Well, there's not one word about the beheadings that are taking place nearly on a daily basis in Mexico. Why are we not concerned about Mexico and its citizens if we're so worried about this? So, you know, it just seems like the world is upside down right now. It seems like everything President Trump, you know, does is the wrong thing to do. And ironically, you know, for the last, you know, several decades, the Democrats have pledged that we don't want to be in war, we're civil liberties, and everything they said they are, they're not anymore. So I think that's kind of the irony of President Trump here. He's got them completely turned around, and it's to the point when it comes to, you know, an election for the president, at least, and he say, look, you know, this is what they said, this is what they did, are two different things. So it's going to be really, I mean, you know, what Nancy Pelosi there as Speaker of the House, that's going to be, you know, got a lot more in her hands, and I think she's going to, you know, see that it's going to be a fine line of what she can do and how she can go after President Trump.
You know, and it's, I guess what it is, Kimberly, is that their hatred for President Trump gives them the opportunity to be able to erase, you know, what Schumer and Clinton and Pelosi and all the others have talked about, you know, about close that border, build that wall, and, you know, and their hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh no, that's different. For some reason, it's different. Like they changed their mind at the last second. And we know that it had to do with the vote, you know. And this thing about, you know, the magnet, we already had the strongest magnet in California with all the goodies, and then they go and add the sanctuary city.
Yeah.
And it's like Russian roulette, you know, really. But in case you'd have to change
it just, I mean, you feel badly for these countries, but, obviously there is something that needs to happen in Central America to stop the violence and whatnot. But I think that can be done through diplomatic channels. I think we ought to be having more diplomatic channels with those countries. We ought to be helping Mexico be like Canada, so they don't want to come to America any longer. And I just think that, the left is so hell-bent on winning it to provide. I mean, Nancy Pelosi said, we're going straight into, we're going to go into climate change. We're going to vote about it because we've got to get on record saying that the world's going to come to an end in a couple of years if we don't make changes. And, yawn for most Republicans, but, that's something that will increase your taxes. It's going to increase your gas tax in California, which we already pay the highest. So these are real issues that people have to look at. And if this is what this is what Nancy Pelosi is going to do, and they're going to fight against getting out of Syria, I mean, they're on the wrong side of the American people.
On the global warming issue, all we have to do is say, all right, we want to see all of your facts and figures, how you came to this conclusion, and why you keep moving the goalposts yearly and yearly and yearly. Yeah. We're going to be right back. Wrap things up with Kimberly Dvorak. Remember the website, thekvreport.com. She's on Facebook right now, and you spell the last name D-V-O-R-A-K. Kimberly Dvorak. Be right back. CRN, with my guest Kimberly Dvorak, CW6 News San Diego, One American News Network, VKV Report. Kimberly, I'll tell you, I was reading this thing last evening on Alexandria Cortez, New York. This youngest lady is just like people saying she doesn't have the IQ of a salamander. Anyway, and whenever she released this thing about her plan for the new Green Deal, and when I read it, I just get this like you're listening to somebody speaking, Hitler or somebody, and she's saying, let's see here, the rule will lay out the committee's jurisdiction and require the action that must be taken. Let's see, under jurisdiction, the select committee shall have the authority to develop a detailed national, industrial, economic mobilization plan for the transition of the United States economy to become greenhouse gas emission neutral, significantly. And here it is, it says, it will virtually eliminate poverty, right? Shall recognize that a nation industrial economic mobilization, the scope and scale to eliminate poverty in the United States to make prosperity, wealth, and economic security available to everyone who participates in this transformation. And I'm wondering, I know he didn't leave an email, but do you think Hitler left her a note?
Let me just make I'm going to make one little comment about that. I'm just wondering, by the sounds of what she wrote and how she said this, by chance, was she a Miss America contestant and the general answer is world peace? That's what it sounds like to me. So maybe that's a little bit of pain there. With these kinds of programs, there's no pay for, so they can't fund these programs just yet. Technology hasn't reached the level where the Democrats would like it to reach. But what I would like to do, I'd like to kind of end on something like this. Contrast Ms. Cortez to what's going on with the funding of the border wall and the U.S. service member who has lost 3 limbs and is being just heckled on late night comedic shows and the wonder. But I had a friend that talked to me about this whole wall. Sent money in to build the southern wall, and this other friend of mine said, hey, maybe we should make that donation tax deductible, and then you'll get a lot more people that could build that wall, and it would be a tax write-off, so the wall could get built and the president could collect a win on that. So I wanted to kind of end on that because I thought that was a brilliant idea. And whether they ever go for that or not is one thing, but I thought this was the perfect place to bring that up.
If they did go for that, all right, what would the Democrats' reactions be? We've got about 45 seconds. I mean, what would they come up with? It's humanity, inhumane, what?
Well, what they probably try to do is say that it's illegal for a private company to build the wall. So it would require the directive from the president to say that we're going to send the Army Corps of Engineers to get this wall built. We're going to divert the money from this particular fund to go pay for it. It could be done by directive or executive order, but the Democrats would go apoplectic because I think that you'd get a lot of people. I mean, and there are also a lot of wealthy Republicans who want this done. So if they put up half the money, then, I mean, you've got to look at that and say that's a win. This fund is well over 20 million. I mean, people want the wall built.
Well, listen, we have run out of time, Kimberly, and thanks again. Excellent job on Kimberly Dvorak. Go to VKD Report. Hey, read this because this is fantastic. The title is "It's Time, Mr. President." Thanks ever so much. We'll do it again next week.
Okay.
Coming up next,
Thank you.
Marshall